Perfect.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Municipality of Monroeville Citizen Night and Council Work Session. Today is Thursday, March 5th, 2015, approximately 7 p.m. If we'd all kind of rise for the Lord's Prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to grab those sheets, make sure that they sign in. If anybody would like to address council, you can, before Tim gets down there, you can certainly sign in, but if you don't sign in, I'm still going to ask anybody who'd like to address council. You can certainly do that. Donna Meyer, if you'll please come on up. Hi, Donna. Please state your name for the record and that you just live in Monroeville. You don't have to give your address.
Donna Meyer, and I live in Monroeville.
Please.
I have a question about point of order for this council. Last November, I've been on the Planning Commission for one term, and it was up in November. So I put my applications in to Mr. Little, and I notified Mr. Caleri that I was interested again in another term. After, in December, there was no response. In January, I questioned this, and I was told, don't worry, said to me right here, you're in. And I got nominated. In February, there was no approval or disapproval put through, a vote put to this council. So I would really like to know, Mr. Dice, maybe you can answer, whether they have to submit the nomination for an approval or not, a vote up or down.
It's a good question, and we've had this come up before in the past. I want you to know, appointments have laid open or remained open for as long as 6 or 8 months, so that there's no requirement to fill a planning commission position or a zoning hearing board position or a municipal authority position, both in the planning commission and at the zoning hearing, or at the municipal authority. Those individuals under the planning code and under the Municipal Authorities Act that are seated continue to seat until a new appointee is appointed. So you would continue to sit on the planning commission until such time as you are reappointed or someone else is appointed. The same holds true for the municipal authority. Not so for the zoning hearing board. The zoning hearing board's term actually ends. So there would be a shortage on the zoning hearing board by one person. But that happens in lots of communities where you don't necessarily get a council ready or willing or desire to fill the vacancy. There's no requirement. You could run the whole term. You could run the next 4 years and not have anybody appointed in your position, and you would continue to serve, as is true with the planning, or with the municipal authority, not with the zoning hearing board.
Well, the question I had, the reason I'm asking you is that today I received an email from Mr. Caleri because I had put a request in to know what was going to happen. And he had indicated, he said he decided to nominate someone else. So now my nomination sits there, but he's nominating someone else. And my nomination was in January. So I'm curious, the nomination was made. Is it going to be voted on or not?
Okay, and that's purely up to the whim of council. They do not have to vote on it. Mr. Caleri could nominate, has there been a motion and a second and a vote to nominate someone else?
No, I just found out today. I
All
don't
right.
think so.
Let's assume Tuesday night, Mr. Caleri makes a motion to nominate so-and-so, and it's seconded, and it's voted upon, and now there's 2 names up. and a month goes by, and Mr. Caleri decides, you know what, I think I'm going to put a third name up. He could next month decide to put somebody else's name up. You could have, if you ever look, sometimes there's 2 or 3 or 4 people up for a position.
So,
You don't get any seniority because you were nominated first.
I understand that. The reason I'm asking that is that you ask citizens to volunteer, so we do. So now we're kind of like left in limbo. And for my first term, I started out as secretary. I volunteered to do it, and I've been taking the minutes for our draft ordinance meetings that we have, working on that. So I have quite a collection that I've turned over to Mr. Tufo because we review those every month. And we've had more than one meeting a month. We've had sometimes 3 meetings. This past year in 2014, we were at a hiatus and did not meet at all for it, but now we're ready to finish this. And here I sit, ready to go, and I'm waiting for some sort of an idea what's happening. I wasn't told why, you're going to nominate someone else. And I'm just curious, because I have a very in-depth knowledge about this draft ordinance. So that was my question as to whether it would give me some finality, because the more I work on this, and now we're reviewing the draft, I'm going over all of I wanted to know what was happening.
Okay, and I think you've made your point.
Answer.
Just recognize that this entity here is not required to respond to that kind of rhetorical question, why? If any member of council chooses to make a response, they can do so at the close of public comment. But I would suggest to you that that's part of politics. That's part of the American way. I mean, people get nominated, some people get disappointed, some people get appointed. I can't.
I think as a citizen, we don't really look at it as politics, because our decisions aren't political. When we're in the planning commission, we're looking at other things.
You might not think they're political, but every decision that's made up there has some politics to it.
Certainly, my reason for being on there wasn't political.
Okay, and I appreciate that.
And the person who nominated me gave me a choice of various communities. She said, maybe you'd like to be interested, because she put me in touch as being on, initially I was interested in getting something done for the community, because I am president of the homeowners. And she put me in touch, once she got won her the council seat, she put me in touch with Mr. Hughes, and we worked on it. So when there was an opening, she said, was I be interested? And I said yes. But it wasn't this particular, so it wasn't a political appointment, so to speak, like maybe it's being made out to be. It was strictly a choice.
I'm not making it out that way. I'm suggesting it, if you look back over the decades of various things that have gone on in municipalities, these appointments oftentimes bring with them some politics. You may have no political you might not have any political aspirations. You don't want to be a councilman, you don't want to do any of this. You like the idea of working on the planning commission. I think you've made that point. I think that's all well taken. I just would suggest to you that this council doesn't owe an explanation. There's no legal requirement for an explanation as to why another person gets nominated. Whether that person's more qualified, I don't know.
Well, I'll just end it by saying that if you want citizens to be on these commissions, then I think you need to do a better job of making sure that you're treating them appropriately, and at least giving them a vote or a reason why you don't want them on the commission anymore. And I think that would be a much fairer way. Thank you.
Thank you. Bobby Gibson. Bob, state your name for the record, and obviously you just live in Monroeville. Do not give your address.
Bob Gibson, Monroeville. I'm here tonight to speak for the veterans. We submitted a application for a grant for our parade. I know nobody's probably spoke to you people before, but I'd like to bring up a few points. Number one, this parade is very important to us. As you can see, we brought a following tonight. The monies that you authorize us go to pay other members, other groups in the parade. And we've scrutinized their charities that they pay. So it's not anybody pocketing any of this money anywhere. We in turn take the rest of the money. We also reimburse ourselves for the food we put out for the community day, which we invite everybody to. and we have an open house the entire day from 10 o'clock on. We have a wonderful staff that participates, that helps us. Our women's auxiliaries, better than none, that they take care of everybody that comes down here. After that, we take care of our vets that come home. Any new vet or any veteran that comes back to our post, for the first year, their membership's free. We include that at Memorial Day. We try to make that to build it up and to show them we want to welcome them back to our fold. We memorialize this day. It's very important to us because we honor the guys that think they're here. That's so you and me can stand here free. That's a big day to us. It's a very critical day. So we come to you with open arms and ask you for this money. Anything that's left over, naturally, we get back to the community in different organizations. I didn't bring a list with me, but we have several donations we give back to different organizations within the community. But our primary mission is the veteran. We take what we have in our co-fairs, and these people, everybody has spent time at the VA hospitals with them. We brought back a lot of guys this time in pieces. We got to rebuild them, but we got to help them. That's our mission. And that's why we want this parade to be successful and stay here. This year, last year, as you noticed, it expanded. We now have a lot more military units involved, a lot more vehicles coming down the road. We want to show the community, this municipality and surrounding communities, of what we use the equipment on and who these people were. So this is why I ask you people to bring us the money that we need so that we can put forth this.
Put it on the record, Bob, how much you're asking for.
Well, we submitted for $6,000. So, every year, I don't think you've ever had anybody come up here and speak to you, but I am.
What do we currently give you now, Bob?
I think it was $3,500 last year, and we had to go out asking other people. And they upped the 4th of July.
We have $3,200 budgeted.
You have a budget. Well, I'm asking, I need more than that to pay these groups and to go forth. I don't need the 6. I'll tell you what, I can go with 5. But I'll tell you, we put out a big expense, and I wish everybody bring their families down. We have things for the children. We have things for the entire family. This isn't just a club. This is a post. And we want to build it, and we want to bring this community to it and see it and show it.
Well, one of the things, Bob, that you did mention, then, and I'll help you out a little bit, you did give one of the students at the high school a $250.
We paid their way for a conference.
Right. So you do give back to the community. Obviously, your mission, and I agree with your mission, as you well know, I'm a veteran as well, as our veterans, but you do help the community in various ways, and I guess, and I'm going to ask council now, just so you all know, for all the vets sitting here, as well as you, Bob, they can't make any decision tonight. This is not a voting meeting. This is something that has to go into discussion, and as Tim did say, that, it was budgeted $3,200 because the budget was done earlier this year. But I'm in full support of raising your donation to you. And I'm not sure, again, I don't want to put council on the spot, but they certainly will have some discussion on that between now and next Tuesday. So if that's okay with everybody.
Well, that's why I wanted to come here, because I know nobody's ever come up before to explain this grant. But I want you guys to know that we don't put it in our pocket. It goes past us.
Do you submit I guess your expense sheet at the end of every parade, do you not? Isn't that required? I
No.
thought that was.
I don't think so. We never did, but we. Oh,
Yeah, that might be not a bad, guys, I'm just going to say it out loud. I think that might be a good idea. That'll help council understand
Yeah.
that, we've held you at $3,200 for quite a while, so maybe, let them see your
And this
expenses,
will-
and I
will
think
be
they'll
available.
understand it'd be a lot easier for them to support an increase.
And we will always be available to answer any questions you
So
may
just
bring
put
us.
that in the back of your head anyway, guys. I'd appreciate that.
No, we always, every penny's counted for, just like Ronnie has to count for his pennies. We know about the fire budget. That's all I have to say.
I
thank
thank you
you
for
all.
your time.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you all, gentlemen.
Okay, guys, if you guys want to leave, I can hold, or if you guys can stick around, we'd love you if you just want to stick around, but if you want to exit out, I'll give you some time to do that as well. We're good. Okay. Again, once again, we'll leave the floor open for any resident who would like to address council. It is certainly your time to do that. Please sign in, state your name for the record, sir.
Good evening, my name is Robert Serafini, and I live in Turnpike Gardens. The reason I mention Turnpike Gardens is I tell you what, we have hell of good service out there. I just want to say thank you to the guys that are cleaning the streets, which they have done so well all season. I know it's a hell of a winter, and they've done a great job. And I even want to thank the garbage men. I mean, they were out there 5 minutes later than they usually are, which in deep snow. They did a hell of a job. I just want to say thank you.
I appreciate that, Robert, and I'm sure the guys appreciate that as well. Anything else for us, Bob?
That's it.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave it open for anybody else who would like to address council. This is certainly your time to do that. We'll close up a portion of our meeting of the citizens' night. Oh, did I? Oh, portion, I'm sorry. Well, that's close. Right now, we'll go over to our work session, and we do have a presentation, so Mr. McCarthy, if you'll come on up and explain, this is on Piper Jaffe, and he will go into a little more detail, counsel. You can certainly ask any questions that you
Well,
have.
let me just give the public a little bit of a preface. We have one bond issue out, our 2010 bond issue, that can be refunded, or you can say refinanced. We also have a second one, a 2011, that's not callable till next year, but that also could be refunded. And Mr. McCarthy is from Piper Jaffe, a underwriter, and he's here to give a presentation to council on the possibility of refunding those two bond issues, or one, or both.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. As Mr. Little mentioned, my name's Chip McCarthy. I'm from Piper Jaffe, investment banking, public finance. We were the underwriter for the last bond issue in 2012. In monitoring the municipality's debt, we came, as rates have been dropping, we noticed that it may be advantageous, again, as Mr. Little said, to refund both the 2010 and the 2011 bond issues. I put together a booklet for you just to briefly touch on a few things. The first tab is just an overview of Piper Jaffe as our company, as some of the council may have not been here for our last financing, just to let you know a little bit who we are, what we cover, how large of a firm we are, and how invested we are in public finance. The second tab, again, is more informational. We have some economic commentary in there for you to read. As everybody is aware, everybody's waiting for the Fed to make some sort of move on interest rates. It's been the last 4 years that rates have been going up, but they continue to go down. So it's just, it's very hard to predict, and it's to us in the bond industry, it's amazing. And for issuers like yourself, it's great because you get the advantage of taking, to take advantage of the low rates to refinance your existing debt. On page 8, tab 2, after that economic commentary, is a graph in there, and that illustrates the bond buyer 20-year GEO index. Basically, it's a conglomeration of bond issues throughout the entire country, put together into an index with a maturity of about 20 years. And they put this index out weekly. Unfortunately, I did not get the latest update before I left the office. But as you can see, this graph encapsulates a period of time between 2007 and 2015. And on the right there, it kind of illustrates what the highs and lows in the current status of the tax-exempt market is. The high being in October of 2008, obviously, when the market was collapsing and the financial institutions were in need of a bailout. The rates had peaked during that time period at about 6.01%. The lowest we hit was at the end of 2012, was at 3.27, and then currently we're at about a 3.62, so still very low in historical terms. I mean, we're probably in January this year, we approached that low again of 3.27, but rates bounced up real quick. So you're at a very good time in the market. very low interest rates. Hopefully, we hang in there at least till the end of the year. That's what a lot of the experts are predicting, but a lot of the experts have been wrong so far. So, moving on to...
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Are we talking about 2011? Is that what our current bond that you're talking about refinancing? Is that the one?
Yeah, it's the 2000 bond issue, the 2011 bond issue and the 2010 bond issue.
Okay.
Okay. So you're kind of getting a gauge from when they were
Yeah.
issued.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Page 9 in tab 3, just as kind of a summary again to go over what your last bond issue was, and that was a refunding of the 2007 bonds and advance refunding. And we were able to achieve great savings at that time, approximately $611,000 or 8% of the bonds that were being refunded at that time. In our industry, the standard for being fiscally responsible is when savings hit at least 2% of the bonds being refunded. A lot of people like to knock that up to at least 3% to feel that they're getting their money's worth on the bonds being refunded. So anytime we see things approaching that 2 to 3% threshold, we're gonna contact you and hopefully get you to move forward, or at least present you the options on what you can do. Page 10, again, is just illustrating where you are in your current debt service and what it looks like. Very short debt service overall, although it is at a $3.1 million level right now, but it does drop off in approximately 2022. So you have a lot of room out there if you're thinking ahead for capital projects. I know everyone wants to obviously do as much as they can, but within their means, their annual budgetary means. So you can see your debt service is relatively level and then drops off. And I denoted down in that right-hand corner just what bond issues you have outstanding, and we are focusing on the 2010 that's callable June 1 of this year, and the 2011 bond issue that's callable June 1 of next year. Page 11 and 12 just illustrate what those two outstanding bond issues look like currently. You can see the 2010 bond issue matures in 2019 for outstanding principal about $6.3 million. And the 2011 bond issue on the following page matures in 2026, and there's about $6,055,000 left outstanding. And that little gray shaded dates of 6/115 and 6/116 just showing you where the call date is. And normal procedure would be to refund maturities after the call date. You normally don't get any true savings by refunding maturities before the call date or on the call date. So you can see that between those two issues, they total about $12 million. Probably the amount refundable is less than that, 11 million, maybe 10 million some. There's a thing in the municipal marketplace where issuers can take advantage of what's called bank qualified rates. And if you open tab 4, page 13, I talk a little bit about bank qualification. Essentially, without boring you with IRS details, if an issuer issues $10 million in par amount, or a bond issue that is approximately $10 million and doesn't generate more than $10 million in proceeds, the purchasers of that debt receive special tax considerations. So the banks and the institutions and the trust funds that are out there, that if they purchase that debt that is bank qualified, they receive special tax considerations, special tax breaks from the government. So essentially, that's a windfall or a boon to the issuer, because you get lower interest rates. They're willing to give lower interest rates because they're getting that benefit of the bank qualification from the federal government. So normally, when we're looking at refundings that are hovering around that $10 million level, we probably wouldn't want to go above that $10 million, because the difference in savings to the municipality can be significant. So in looking at these two issues, as Tim had mentioned, and we had a conversation today, the 2010 bond issue is callable this year, meaning that when you deposit money to pay off those bonds, that money does not sit there very long in an escrow to pay off those bonds. The 2011 bond issue is callable next year, so we would have to purchase U.S. Treasury securities to put in escrow to pay off that bond issue. Now, as rates are low, the U.S. Treasury securities that we purchase the rates on those are also low, so there is what's called negative arbitrage in your escrow, where you're allowed to earn your bond yield, but because the rates that you invest in are so low, you don't earn that much. So all the results that we show you today or illustrate for you take into consideration all those factors. So everything, all your costs, your interest rates, all the savings results that you see, take that all into account and incorporate what your negative arbitrage might be, or what your costs are going to be, or what the rate differential is, or what the savings is going to be generated. Unique to some current refundings, which your 2010 would be, because we are refunding it within 90 days of your call date. If you settle a bond issue within 90 days of its call date, it is called currently callable. If you refund a bond issue more than 90 days in advance of its call date, it's called an advance refunding. And the federal government and the federal tax regs regulate that and give you stipulations on what you can do, what you can advance refund, and what you can't advance refund.
That would actually cost us less savings for us than if you did that beforehand, am I correct?
Well, if rates stayed the same from now until that next call date,
Which would be June 1.
well, right. I mean, are you talking about the 2010 bond issue?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Because we're close to that refunding date, that optional redemption date, the cost of that escrow is less, so it does produce more savings.
If you do it before the 90-day
Correct.
call date, correct?
No, we can't do it before that, because we're within that 90-day
Oh,
period.
within, okay.
We're
You
within
can,
that
you can
90-day
still,
period.
you can, correct me if I'm wrong, Chip, I mean, you can still refund the 2010 after June 1st.
Yes.
But you're still
Yes.
paying the higher interest. It's just like refinancing your house.
No, I got it,
same thing.
I got it.
Right.
I just want to get that out there so the public understands as well,
Right.
and as well as myself.
Okay. The federal government allows you on some current refundings, if it is a refunding of a previous bank qualified bond issue, to designate that as a credit towards your bank qualification limits. And I know this is probably getting very complicated, but essentially it allows you that if you do a current refunding, you could designate that current refunding, if it meets certain tests, to not count against your bank qualification limits. So you could do more than $10 million in 1 year and still receive bank-qualified rates on all those bond issues.
Are
as
you
long as they
recommending
qualify.
that?
Not yet. I'm not there yet.
Okay.
I'm just trying to lay the groundwork. I'm sorry.
I got
It's
it.
a long road to get there. This is not, interesting stuff, but it is relevant to you because it can maximize your savings. Page 14 just details that we based our rates on current market conditions, based off your last rating, which was a AA2 by Moody's. We based it on both. We did scenarios for both bank qualified and non-bank qualified rates. The redemption dates on the new bonds would be callable in 5 years. So we structured everything that you would have another bite at the apple in 5 years on this new bond issue. Okay. So to get to the results, I know everyone wants to know what does all this mean. So in talking with Mr. Little today, I was going to present just a cash at closing number, which is just an upfront savings number. And basically, you're taking advantage of the lower interest rates to put cash in the deal while not increasing your debt service. It's kind of like cashing out on your home mortgage if you do a home equity loan. Essentially, the debt service would remain the same, but you could extract cash out through the interest rate savings, and those monies you would get at closing can be used for capital projects. They can't be used for regular budgetary items, to pay salaries, but it can be used for police cars. It can be used for bricks and mortar type of projects. in further discussion with Mr. Little, he suggested that we also examine annual savings and what that would look like for the municipality. And basically, with the way the bond issues are structured, you could probably take those upfront savings and realize them in reducing your debt service, either over the life of the bond issue, or you can target certain years. You can target 15, 16, 17, 18, anywhere there's principal that allows you to reduce it and still have enough savings there to make it workable. So this first page here summarizes 3 scenarios that we ran for you. One is one bank-qualified deal, refund both issues, do it at one time, keep it below, at 10 million or below, and that produces approximately $367,000 in savings. So a very significant savings, almost 4%. Again, the little graph over there is just kind of showing you that we're not changing the overall aggregate debt service of the municipality. We're extracting that savings out through interest rate reduction. The second scenario would be you could do 2 bank-qualified bond issues. The advantage here being that you could refund more bonds, hopefully achieve more savings, and still receive the lower bank-qualified rates. Now, this would all have to be done in consultation with your bond counsel to agree with this. But the theory would be that you would do the current refunding first, and then if you want to do the advance refunding, you would have to separate the purchase of that bond issue by at least 15 days.
Chip, if I can interrupt there, you mentioned before that the 2010 series was already deemed, and I want counsel to understand it's bank qualified, but that's up to bond counsel to determine that, whether or not that's bank qualified. So if that's the case, option number 2 would be kind of moot. Am I correct?
Well, no, because you have to, you're worried about the 2015 issue that refunds it. You have to designate that issue. So you would do that first, designate it.
Okay, all right.
So it doesn't count, and then you separate it by 15 days. The drawback to the 2 bond issue scenario for the bank qualification purposes is paying costs of issuance twice, and there is some market risk that if you do 1 bond issue, then 15 days later, rates could either go up or they could go down. So there's no guarantee that when you do the first one, you're going to lock in savings for the second one. And as you can see, the savings is a little bit lower at $341,000, but still significant savings in doing both bond issues. You're refunding a little bit more bonds, but you're doubling up on the cost of issuance. So that's kind of the drawback there. And then the third scenario is doing 1 bond issue, refunding as much as you can, like with the 2 bond issues, but just doing 1 bond issue, but you would have to do it at the non-bank qualified rate. And that produces lower savings, obviously, because you're not getting the benefit of that bank qualification. Now, the difference in BQ and non-BQ can vary greatly in the market depending on the size of the maturity and the length of the maturity. It could be anywhere from 2 basis points to 50 basis points, the longer you go out on the scale. And sometimes in the market, the spreads between those 2 deals compress, and it may be more advantageous to do a non-BQ deal to get as much as you can out of refunding as many bonds as you can. On the next page, the same scenarios. The annual savings, and it's tough to see from those graphs. I know, I'm sorry, they're compressed a little bit. But essentially, the upfront savings translates into the same annual savings on a PV basis. Because even though you may save more on a debt service basis over time, you have to present value that forward to the bond rate on the day of closing, and that's how you get your PV rate. So because you're getting upfront cash on closing, you PV the annual savings to closing, and it's roughly the same. So the savings numbers that you see there roughly would be taken in the first 3 to 4 years. Now, if annual savings is the way you want to go, we could maybe try to get the most bang for your buck and doing 1 deal on a bank qualified basis. we could maybe target some different maturities and try to structure it so that you get the debt service savings in the year that you need it. I think from the numbers that I ran in discussing with Tim, the one bank-qualified bond issue probably gives you the best bang for your buck, gives you the most savings, locks it in with one bond issue, you eliminate that market risk. But at the same time, you have flexibility right now and to discuss and determine what you want to do. You can do one bond issue, you could do two bond issues, you could do no bond issues. You know, I think we're here just to show you and illustrate what your options are. The process itself is probably a 6 to 8 week process. I know Sean's familiar with it. I know Tim's familiar with it. It really costs you nothing to have us get started because ourselves as professionals and your bond counsel do not get paid until a transaction is completed. The only thing you're at risk for during this whole process is that if you get an underlying rating from the rating agencies, that's yours, and then you do have to pay for that no matter what if a bond issue is not executed. So I know I went through a lot of information, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Counsel, any questions at this point?
It's a lot of information, and
Do you have a particular recommendation?
The recommendation that I would have is that the numbers today result in the one bank qualified issue refunding both, give you the highest percentage of savings of the bonds that you're refunding. It actually produces the most savings. Now, if you decide that you only want to do one refunding, you know, if you just want to do the 2010, that savings would be different than what I'm showing you there because it's combined of both of them. So they're both sharing the costs. You're only doing one issue. But it's whatever, you know, makes the most sense for your situation.
the gamble is if we do the one bond issue of
I was just gonna say,
2010,
what's the,
then obviously, because Chip said this is together, the 2011, the call date is until March, I believe it is, March 16. So if you would wait and not refund that issue, you're gambling that interest rates are going to stay the same, maybe tick up just slightly, let's say 5-10 basis points, and you're going to have more savings next year when you refund the 2011 issue. So it's a gamble if you do that. Now, the feds, and Chip and I, talking this afternoon, the feds have been indicating about raising interest rates for 5 years, and they haven't done it, but it's probably going to be done sometime, just nobody knows when.
Yeah, we wouldn't be sitting here if we knew when, right?
And it's,
I'll vote for that.
nobody knows what the Federal Reserve is going to do, but that's the gamble you take. If you do both of them together, you have, like Chip said, what's called a negative arbitrage on the one that takes away from your savings on the 2011 issue.
So the safest bet and the most return is for us to do both at one time. Am I correct?
That's what the numbers illustrate, yes.
Okay.
The bet, like I said, you have flexibility now, and we would want to consult with bond counsel, obviously, whoever you appoint to confirm that. But we can start the process. You have time to decide this. I mean, we still have time before, I told Tim my best case scenario, if we got moving rather quickly, I don't anticipate closing on a bond issue until May because the Department of Community and Economic Development needs to approve it. So if we sold bonds, let's just say at the beginning of April, it's going to be 20 to 25 days for their approval, so you wouldn't close until May. So we still have time to decide exactly what path you want to go down. But I would hope it makes sense to you that both these bond issues are attractive for refunding.
Okay, give me the negative then, because I'm not hearing any negative to doing this.
The only negative is if rates tank and you've got your rating and we don't do a bond issue, you're out the money for the rating fee.
Okay.
And obviously, I think Mr. Dice brought up a good point, at least to me, that we can bring bond counsel in anytime. Am I not correct?
I think, Chip has indicated, I think at this point, you should hear from him. What would you say the next step is?
I would say the next step, obviously, technically, is appointing our professionals to go ahead and move forward and giving us authorization to start gathering their information and putting your package together for the rating agencies.
And do you do that through a resolution, an ordinance?
You can do that through an appointment resolution.
Okay.
Very simple. I'm sure Tim is familiar with them.
If we
have
do that,
examples.
it's my understanding if on Tuesday we decided to do that, there is no obligation, no liability, no owe me, so to speak, to Piper Jaffray.
That's
If
correct.
the deal doesn't go through.
That's correct.
So, does council want to go down that road? Because again, there's no obligation. You have nothing to lose by exploring this further.
I make a
Sounds like a
motion.
no-brainer.
Right. Do we have to make a motion
All
or
right.
something?
No, you can't do that tonight.
No,
Okay.
I mean, if you instruct me to get it, I'm sure you have a model resolution, Chip.
Yeah, we have a
And I'm
simple
sure we have
appointment resolution.
we have one in our file.
So that what would be appropriate then is to see that that be on the agenda for Tuesday.
One thing that I am going to, the mayor has signed what's called an engagement letter that, oh, by the way, Chip, here's the original right here. An engagement letter. It's a non-binding letter, but it does explain, and this is a standard operating procedure, it does explain the role of an underwriter. And I'm going to copy this and put it in council's packet this weekend, just so you have this. I would suggest you read it over, because there was G17 that was passed in.
Yeah, the SEC has, been visiting our industry quite a bit lately, and they have put forth new regulations. And one of those is that we clearly identify to the issuer our role as an underwriter. And that's part of what that engagement letter does.
And I think council should have a copy, at least, it's up to you if you read
But
it.
at no risk to get them started, why wouldn't we?
Everybody's saying okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I am saying yes.
So here's my suggestion.
saying yes.
Go ahead and get the
They said it.
resolution,
Yeah.
Tim, so that it'll be on the agenda for Tuesday night.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Chip. I appreciate your time there, sir.
Thank you. And if you guys have any questions, obviously, Tim knows how to reach me. I'll be happy to answer them.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chip.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, I have council conducted an executive session for personnel and litigation reasons on Monday, March 2nd, 2015, beginning at 6:15 PM and ending at 6:55 PM. And also at 6 PM to 6:55 PM, prior to tonight's citizens meeting, council also had another executive session for personnel and litigation reasons. Council's legislative action, if any, from these two executive sessions shall be taken at the March 10th, 2015 council meeting. So moving over to our minutes here, council, of the Citizens Night meeting of February 5th, 2015, the council work session of February 5th, 2015, and the regular council meeting of February 10th, 2015. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, moving over to our tax collections. Once again, any additions, corrections, or questions for Mr. Fulkerson? Seeing none, we'll move over to payroll report. Going over to payroll, once again, council, any additions or corrections on payroll? And now we'll move over to the list of bills and budget transfers, and Steve, we'll start off with you. Any additions or corrections?
I have nothing. I have nothing.
Paul, Jim,
Nothing.
Ron,
Nothing.
Nick,
No, sir.
and Linda.
Nothing.
All righty, we'll move over to our new business, and that's, Tim, if you'll pick that up, please.
Council, for this Tuesday's meeting, we have the same conditional uses and site plan, the Monmouth
Bless you.
Partners, which is the Panda Drive-Through Express, and items, this consists of items 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they are all asking to be tabled, so this coming Tuesday, requesting a motion to table the conditional use approvals and the site plan and and it's also a subdivision approval.
Tim, also Resolution 1 is with that.
Yeah, okay, well, yeah, we didn't.
Is that going to be a motion or a resolution?
Well, the,
Tabling.
Motion to table on Tuesday.
Motion to table, not a resolution.
Well, that would
Not a
be for
resolution.
Tuesday.
Yeah, it's for Tuesday.
Okay. All right.
Good? We good? All right, Tim?
Okay.
Okay, item B under motions, for Tuesday, a motion to accept Zane Donaldson's resignation from the Personnel Board.
That'll be for Tuesday, Council. Okay.
Okay, item C under resolutions, as Paul Hugus mentioned, dealing with Monmouth Partners, a resolution adopting, but they're requesting a tabling
So
of
that
that
will be
resolution
tabled as
for
well.
their sewage planning module. Item 2 under resolutions, a resolution authorizing the distribution of grant funds for the Memorial Day Parade, which is what Mr. Gibson was speaking of when he was up at the podium, and historically, well, I know for the last 3-4 years at least, we have given $3,200, but if council wants to increase that, let me know tonight or at some other time so we can change the resolution. Any discussion on that?
Discussion, Council.
If you're going to ask me, I think that we should try to do it if we can.
I agree with Jimmy.
It's my opinion.
Mr. Lally, we have room in the budget to take funds from to be able to up this amount of money that we've already budgeted?
Need another $2,800 or whatever it was. I think we're.
I'm
what'd
sure
you
we
It'd
say?
be 1,800 minimum. He said to 5,
Yeah, but they were asking
for
for
6, but he said he'd go to 5. But do we have the money?
We could find it, I'm sure,
Is there
Which
anything,
one,
in-
18 or 28?
both. Or, either or.
is there anything in council's budget? That way we're just, it's from, we could look on
I'd
through
have
our
to
line
review-
items.
Review
I don't know
that
if
and
it's
get back to
education
you.
or something like that,
That's a great idea, Nick.
Yeah, it is.
instead of.
Yeah, because,
hitting other
just
departments.
for everybody's FYI, 3 are not going to the Seven Springs Conference. I think we can transfer those funds over, could we not?
That would be great.
So if we can make it
That would
happen
take
with
care of that
council's money,
2,800, I'm
that'd be
pretty
best.
sure. Am I not correct, Sean?
Yeah, I'll look into it for you for Tuesday's meeting, and I'll let you know exactly where it can come from.
So we're
if
basically
you
looking at
choose to.
$6,000 unless you say something different, but it'll at least be 5, preferably 6 if you can take it out of the council budget.
Be nice to get them 6 if we can do it.
I
because
agree
they-
with
that's
that,
just-
by the way.
Yes,
So, council's good?
yes.
See what, yeah. We'll see what-
Yeah, let's see what Sean comes up with. And you'll let Tim know that, so he'll have it prior to, and it'll
Absolutely.
be on the agenda for Tuesday.
Turn your
Very good.
confidence into creativity, bro.
Very good. Tim?
Okay, item number 3 is a resolution authorizing the distribution of grant funds for the Monroeville Independence festivities, which is $10,000 from the municipality every year. Item number 4 is a resolution adopting the Sri Shriti Saw Baba Temple sewage planning module.
Any questions on either one of these well, some of them we already discussed,
Well,
but on the last,
money for
the
the-
last, on 4.
The money for the parade, the Independence festivities is already budgeted, and so
Correct.
there's no change in that number, and it's
No.
all.
No, correct.
So we're all, that's good. Okay.
Well, for the public's information, the convention center certainly helps the July 4th parade. So
Yes, they do.
Wonderful.
to the tune of 10,000.
$10,000 comes from the convention center.
Very good. Okay, any other, what about questions on item number 4 under resolutions? Any issues there? Any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move over to reports of the municipal staff. And Bruce, you are up first.
Nothing further.
Nothing further. Okay, Tim, you have a few items there.
Okay, I have 4 items underneath my report. The first one is the Bilhinski naming, Community Park. I've included in your packet over the weekend, and also at your station, that there was in the agreement when the municipality purchased the park, which is now the community park, I believe back in 2002, there was a provision in there that a structure or something at the park would be named after the people the community municipality bought the park from, and that was Bohinski and also Slash Brown. So I'm entertaining any kind of discussion for council of anything that they would, a pavilion, a road, a ballpark, anything that they would.
Nick,
just
you
for
had a
the-
suggestion.
Yeah, if, just for everyone's understanding, in this, the section agrees, actually is written, the buyer agrees that some appropriate component of the contemplated park be created by the buyer on the property will contain the name Bohinski. And unfortunately, this is 2003, unfortunately, this never came to fruition. I mean, it was in the agreement and it was never taken care of, but What I would suggest to council is maybe changing one of the road names in the community park. Currently, there is Gazebo Lane, which is the main, it runs parallel with Tillbrook, so it's whenever you first come in. Perhaps that'd be something to, it's a pretty significant naming, I would think. Curious what council thinks about that.
Council, you guys okay with that?
Sounds good to me. And
Sounds good to us.
Very nice suggestion.
That's a great suggestion.
Yes, thank you.
And whether it be, I don't know what, if it, would it be lane or way, or I don't know what the specific thing would.
Any help from the engineering staff on
Matter?
that? Does it make a
Does it matter?
difference?
Take your pick.
Boulevard.
Make it a boulevard. Why not? Make it significant.
We have to do that under ordinance, correct? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be for the April meeting.
Very good.
Pinsky Boulevard.
Next.
Okay,
Pinsky Boulevard.
I've started my meetings again with the Park and Rec Department, and speaking with Joanne and Paul. Joanne brought to my attention about the weddings that we have up at the gazebo. They're getting rather large. We have maybe about 150 people trying to gather around the gazebo, and it's, in the parking gets a little tough. So she suggested if we could have the weddings done at the amphitheater, and the Public Works Department could set up, something there, not a lot of work involved, some kind of a platform right in front of the amphitheater itself. So the people, there'd be a lot more space for people to gather around, and maybe even take if people wanted to bring a trellis themselves or have a trellis there, something of that nature, to have more room for people if it's a larger wedding. Most of the weddings are smaller, but more and more, I'm being told that we're having larger weddings up there. So I just wanted to let council know about that in case they had any issues, questions, conversation, discussions.
Well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
As I was reading through that, it didn't look like she was really asking for much other than a change of venue almost, so we can move it across the street.
No, they still want to do at the gazebos, but it's smaller.
For the smaller weddings.
Yeah, for the smaller
I was
weddings.
just going to ask that. That's still going to be okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No,
Just
it's
for
not
the
a
bigger
total
ones.
change, just for the bigger ones.
Okay.
If an option for the people to go down there and have more room.
Why
And did
not? What would be the negative? What,
Just letting you know about it, so if you go up to the park on a Saturday one day and there's somebody having a wedding at the amphitheater, just so you know about it.
Did they establish a permit fee for that?
Whatever the fee would be for the gazebo would be the
Yeah.
same thing. I forget what the permit
Mark,
fee
what is that? I can't remember that.
Part of the park and
That's park.
recreation.
Oh, that's Park and Rec. I thought that's.
Yeah, I forget
what
what that fee is. I forget
But
what,
there is a charge, though. There is a charge.
yeah.
Good enough to do.
Next, Tim.
Okay, the next one is, I have in your packet also, the law enforcement torch run, which is for the Special Olympics, which is occurring in June. And just to bring it to council's attention so they are aware of it, this would take place, the start of the run is on June 1st, 2015, and will begin at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. Day one will end on the border of Allegheny and Westmoreland County, heading up US 22. So this will come through Monroeville, and I just want council to know about this, if they're okay with it, because obviously the police department would have to be notified, and I do believe the state police obviously would be involved in this also. Does council have any questions or comments about the law enforcement torch run running through Monroeville on Route 22?
No, I think it's wonderful. For the Special Olympics, absolutely.
Great idea.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about that?
That's why I asked you.
All right, the last item under my report is just a reminder to the public, this is being advertised twice in the newspaper. Our agenda-setting meeting and Citizens Night next month will not be Thursday, April the 9th. It will be Wednesday, April the 8th. Okay, we're changing that date so the public knows, just a reminder. Okay?
Thank you, Tim. And Mr. Dyson, we're going to go back to you.
Yeah, I forgot to speak to you on this vacancy board chairman. I think last month there was some talk to you about the creation of a vacancy board, and it's something that should It's kind of a housekeeping thing. It should appear on your agenda. I don't know whether we're ready to start it Tuesday. It's certainly provided for under the Borough Code. You're covered by this situation, and what a vacancy board is one person. And that one person who you select on an annual basis, and each year you must make that selection. It's not a term beyond a year. So that person has to be reappointed every year. Sits when council is at an impasse because there's been created a vacancy. So one of you moves, resigns for whatever reason, dies, whatever the circumstances are, there's a vacancy that's created in your ward. Council then has 45 days to fill that vacancy. And that means you would meet, discuss possible you could do it anyway. You could simply come out and make a motion, just as a lady at the Planning Commission said. You could just appoint somebody and not interview anybody. You could just decide, because it's that simple. Or you can go through a process, and you can interview people and go through an intricate process to select a candidate from that ward to serve the balance of the unexpired term. And under the Home Rule Charter, it might not be the unexpired term. It might be until the next municipal election if that occurs sooner. All this being said, what happens when council gets to the point where 3 of you want Joe and 3 of you want Amy, and it's a tie? You're at impasse. You can't reach a decision. That's when the vacancy board can convene. And the vacancy board is made up of the vacancy person that you put in, and he or she chairs the vacancy board, and you 6 remaining council people. And now it's 7. And the 7 of you make the decision on who it is that you want to sit for that term that's remaining. So it becomes a really important position in the event there's impasse, if you are deadlocked for whatever reason. And this is really a what-if. It's a remote situation. But I want you to know, over the years, I've seen it happen 5 or 6 times where councils have been as pleasant as pie, and a vacancy is created, and all of a sudden now there's a void. There's a vacuum. And nobody knows who wants what for the replacement of that person. And it can create a deadlock. And if you don't have a vacancy board person, if you don't make that appointment within the 45 days, and you don't have a vacancy board, which we don't at this point, and 15 days more goes by, the Court of Common Pleas appoints. And nobody wants that to happen. That takes the control out of this council and places it with the court. And any registered taxpayer in that ward gets 10 signatures, and they can go to the Court of Common Pleas and get appointed. So, again, I'm telling you, 4 or 5 or 6 times that's happened to me in my career, and you don't want that to happen here. So my suggestion is that we advertise the position for vacancy board and seek an appointment in the future and get that seat filled for the future.
Mr.
in
Doug,
this
do people
case,
have to
the-
apply for this? I mean, do they have to send a
Same
letter?
thing
Or
as applying to the planning commission,
Okay.
zoning hearing board, boards, commissions, and whatever.
Okay.
Good,
So,
Steve.
This is a little different where the mayor wouldn't break this tie?
That's correct.
That's the, yeah.
Okay.
So are we telling Tim to put that on our website that we're seeking applicants? Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Tim.
You want it in the newspaper?
No.
Cheapest
Why
way,
pay-
cheapest way we can do
Why
it.
pay for that if we don't have to?
Let's see
Just
if
put
we
it on the
can get some
website.
folks on that.
And, since it's brand new, do the advertising, whatever you're going to do for 2 months, say, and make the appointment in June or July, so you've got some time where people have heard about it. So
And we can
don't-
keep announcing it out, too.
Yeah, just don't do it next month. Maybe you do it in May, June, or July. But it's an appointment that should be made.
Anything else for us, Mr. Dice?
That's enough.
That's enough. Paul, you're up.
Yes, thank you. Purpose of tonight, Jamie has put together a road surface management little program for you. Talk about methodology for road resurfacing. Believe it or not, it is going to get warm out. and we're going to be able to look at our roads again.
You're sure?
I don't believe.
What the weatherman says. But one of the things we want to talk about is methodology of how we approach our road system come springtime with the dollars that we have to spend. And how we do that varies greatly. So I'm going to let him go ahead and sort of give you a background of how we look at roads, how we rate them, how we get to the conclusions, and how we're going to treat them this year.
Jamie, if you would.
I'm going to go through this a little on the quick side, so you guys bear with me, and then at the end, if you have any questions, I'll elaborate, but I don't want to
Go for
be
it.
here forever. So I put together a little PowerPoint presentation, road surface management. Looks like our road's out there right now, snow on the side.
Jamie, I think Joe's going to tell you to lean up to the microphone a little bit.
He always tells everybody not to touch the microphone.
Just don't touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not allowed to touch
Don't
it,
touch the
though.
microphone.
We didn't tell you to move it.
All right, I won't touch it. All right, so we'll go through the purpose real quick. The purpose of this is discuss what pavement infrastructure we have, how do we track its condition, how do we maintain it, and where are we going to go from here. So what do we have? Municipal roads, we have approximately 109 miles of municipal road. 34 municipal parking lots. We equate that in road miles, it's roughly 6.3 miles of road. So a total of roughly 115 miles of road. At today's construction cost, that's worth about $72 million. So that might be your most valuable asset as a municipality. And how do we track it? We have a pavement inventory system, and we have a condition assessment system. Pavement inventory system, we use our geographic information system. We have the 115 miles of road broken into 934 different segments, usually like block segments from one intersection to the next. And attached to that digital mapping is attribute data, so the name of the road, the length, the function, the ward, past resurfacing information, condition, etc. And that's a little picture of what we'd see in our GIS mapping if I color code the streets with red being worst condition and green being the best condition. This is actually pretty much everything you'll see here is last year's data, because obviously it's roads are covered in snow now. Kind of can't really go out and assess them as it is. But that lets us view spatial patterns. Then we move on to condition assessment system. We utilize what's called a pavement surface evaluation and rating system. The abbreviation is PACER. The University of Wisconsin-Madison came up with it. And it's a system that lets you rate roads based on surface defects, surface deformation, cracks, patches, and potholes, etc. And here's a table that shows you the PACER ratings. It's a numerical system from 10 being excellent, actually new construction, to 1 being failed pavement. And here's a breakdown of the way your roads looked last year. So each PACER rating, the number of segments in that category, and the total mileage. The next one's a little bit better way to look at that graphical representation. So you can see sort of like a bell curve there, with most of the roads being around a 5 or a 6. At the left would be failed pavement, at the right would be new pavement. And there's factors that affect the condition of roads, the funding that we have for maintenance of roads, the road construction, which is the materials it's made out of, the road profile, which would be the thickness of the different materials, and the drainage for the road, the traffic volume and the weight of the traffic. So obviously heavy roads that get heavy trucks and lots of them tend to fall apart quicker. Modern asphalt materials, what we're seeing is the super pave asphalt that we use these days isn't as good as the old materials. Winter weather, which is usually in the form of plow damage, cold weather cracking, and the heaving that you see when you drive down the road and it's all bumpy when it's cold out, and preventive maintenance, whether you do it or not. So then we can, since we use a numerical system, we can look at trends. We started this methodology back in 2004. So you can see how the PACER rating for all of your roads trended over time. So we were good, we dipped down to fair for a while, we get back up to good last year. And here's a graph that shows that. You can actually see back in 2004, paving was a little bit more political than it is now. So the wards were pretty far apart in condition. You can see in 2014 how that gap narrowed. We pretty much take care of all the roads as they need to be taken care of. The politics are mostly out of it. But you can also see we're teetering on the good fair boundary right now. And then we get to how do we maintain the roads? It starts with prioritization. So we use the road surface age, which is years since last paved. The functional category, so a road is a collector road. We theoretically would resurface more often than a parking lot or a dead end or an alley. And the PACER rating score. And then we have different methodologies for maintenance. You have preventive maintenance, you have repaving, and kind of both of those are based on the PACER rating and how much budget we have to work with. The preventive maintenance, the goal is to preserve roads in good condition before they slip past the point where you can't preserve them anymore. It's more cost-effective. Methods that we've used include fog sealing, which is a PACER of 8 to 10, seal coating, PACER of 5 to 6, a seal coat with a flush coat, which we actually, last year, we kind of pioneered that one, and crack sealing. And then there's repaving. Those are for roads that are too deteriorated to preserve any longer, generally with a PACER score of 4 or less. It's less cost-effective than preventive maintenance, and what we do is overlays and mill and overlays. And in the past, back, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that's pretty much all Monroeville did. And this isn't really the best quality image, but it's the best representation I can show you of preventive maintenance versus wading and repaving. So the orange line represents what you call a degradation curve. That's the condition of the road over time. So you see it starts at excellent on the left. As the pavement ages, it progresses to failed. And you can also see that as it gets farther down in age and the condition gets poorer, the deterioration actually quickens. So once you let the pavement get to a certain level, it falls apart faster. And then you can see the little black stepped line on the right would represent what would happen if you did preventive maintenance. So you'd incrementally improve the road and it would deteriorate a little bit more. You'd keep applying those preventive maintenance treatments and you'd lengthen out that degradation curve and make your pavement last longer for less money. And then just some numerical figures here for the different methods. The cost per mile. I have fog seal at the top here because it'd be the first one we do, but the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The top 5 are what we would consider preventive maintenance, and the bottom 2 would be paving. So you can see crack sealing is relatively cheap, seal coating is a little bit more, and then obviously milling and overlaying is tremendously more expensive. That doesn't account for how long those methods last, though. So the next table gives you a breakdown of each method, how many years they add to the lifespan, and the annualized cost. So once again, you can see all the ones at the top, the first 5 or whatever, or preventive maintenance, and they're significantly less expensive than the overlay and the mill and overlay. Now we get to what our plan is for this year. What we've seen historically, looking at the data, is our average lifespan of our overlays is 15.77 years. If you take our road mileage and divide it by that, we should be paving 7.3 miles per year, which would cost us about $1.8 million a year. This year we have $250,000 for road work. So obviously we're a little bit short-funded. Really what it comes down to is you can't afford to pave like we should, and doing nothing is not an option. So we must preserve what we can and get the most bang for our buck. And we're going to try and focus on preservation, which is probably going to come in the form of fog sealing, seal coating, and possibly crack sealing. And likely the only paving you'll see is if it's absolutely necessary, and what it might be is just spot paving in specific areas that have fallen apart over the winter. And just some simple math for you. For $250,000 budget that we have, you could mill and overlay roughly 1 mile or 0.8% of the pavement, or we could seal coat 14.5 miles or 12.6% of the pavement. Obviously one is unsustainable and the other could get us pretty far. And what that really boils down to, the people who are watching on TV, is that the residents need to understand that repaving of the roads will be less frequent than it has been in the past, and that residents should be prepared for seal coating to move further into residential streets. And any questions, anybody has?
Jamie, whenever you talk about just like spot paving, at what length does it go from Public Works doing it to outsourcing it?
That's a good question. In the past, usually the spot repairs that we would do, we would have the paving contractor do. We'd kind of identify them as targets of opportunity that were nearby other roads. So last year, 2 years ago, we did a couple patches on Duff, a couple patches on Garden City, some other areas like that. But if we're not putting out a big paving program and we're not traversing the municipality, then a lot of that's going to have to fall onto Public Works. They do have some equipment that they didn't have in the past that makes it easier for them to do that. They have a little milling head for their skid steer.
Isn't that really just putting a Band-Aid on the problem every year?
No, not necessarily, especially if you do repairs. If Public Works is to do small repairs, and we follow it up with seal coating the road, it seals it up, it should last.
What if you have a road that's 15 years old?
And we have some of those.
And I know, that's why I'm
I mean, we
asking
have some
now,
of those.
this seal coating or whatever, it's not putting a Band-Aid on it?
It depends what the current condition of it is. I mean, even though it's of age, depending on the condition of it. You know, this week was a perfect example of what I call flash freeze. You had a significant rain over a 24-hour period. That water has seeped into the roadway system. It's going to be 2 degrees tonight.
Right.
You know, that asphalt's going to heave. And we really have to wait till spring to happen.
Sure.
To really evaluate that. You know, we may be at a point where we have, you know, what we're looking at today is we know we at least have one road that's in really bad condition. We may have several come springtime. We just don't know that until that happens.
But wouldn't it be more cost efficient to fix it properly the first time? I mean, it
If you
seems
have the
like
money,
they're-
if you have the money, that's the key.
You could preserve the roads while they're still in decent condition.
Well, no,
We're-
I agree
We're talking
with
about
that.
a road that's so far gone that,
I'm talking about a
Maybe
road
fine.
that should be milled, but we're just gonna throw some slurry.
Well, no, if it's a condition, like you said, if it has a PACER rating of 4 or less, it's beyond that point. We won't even bother doing that. What the chip seal that he had shown on the PowerPoint, the most recent roads that we did that on was College Park Drive and Alpine Village Drive. They were sort of we were trying to find out what happened with it because we did a different methodology there. We did not get too many residents' complaints, to be honest with you, because the way we did it, we locked the stone into place and, you know, didn't have a lot of the old-fashioned tar and chip where you had the tar on vehicles and the chips were flying around. It didn't occur. But again, at the end of the day, you're the ones who are going to get the phone calls. You know, most of the residents are used to seeing a traditional, you know, paving program where they're going out and see a nice, smooth, black surface. That's not what's going to happen here if we use this methodology. So, you know, what we're looking at from you is, where we're at, we have $250,000, and that's only going to do a traditional mill and pave of a mile road, or do we use that money towards, roadway preservation?
Well, just so everybody knows, on that refi, if we go ahead and squeeze that trigger, that's 300,000 plus we could stick into the road program.
Exactly right, Mayor, and council has in the packet, and it shows our debt service dropping off in approximately the year 2020. And our debt service right now is $3.2 million per year, and that goes down significantly. So I think what Jamie and Paul are suggesting here is, I don't think it's a Band-Aid, because you still have to preserve these roads anyway. And if we can preserve and still do some paving until we get closer to that time where we can start floating some more bonds to go back up to, using about $1 million a year for paving, we're kind of in a point right now, we're just, I don't want to say biding time, but we're going to maybe do some preventative maintenance instead of doing some paving, which still should be done anyway.
Well, several years ago, we did all three methods. We did a traditional mill and pave, as well as a fog seal and a chip seal. We did all three back when you had the dollars to do them, but we don't this year.
if I could belabor this just a little longer. Joe, if you could put up that PowerPoint presentation once more. If you look at the chart, I guess really what we're getting at is, on the left of the chart again, is the failed pavements, and on the right is the brand-new things. If you try to repave all the ones and the twos, let's say, and you spend all your money repaving the ones and twos to make them tens, what you're going to see is the fours, the fives, the sixes, the sevens, that big middle of the bell curve is going to start shifting its way to the left. As you're chasing a couple bad roads, the bulk of your roads are going to continue to deteriorate. So what we're talking about is taking the 5s, the 6s, the 7s, and keeping them 5s, 6s, and 7s. And if you got to let the 1s and 2s and 3s become 3s or 2s and 1s, and you lose a couple roads, there's really not much you can do. You have to go for the most bang for your buck and save most of the roads that you can while you can. And like Tim said, eventually you get to the point where some money's freed up, you can go back after those 1s and 2s and 3s and try and get those, but.
But no matter, the long haul is still going to be always to preserve as long as we can, according to that one presentation you showed us, that we're going to save money in the long run by doing this preservation. No matter if we had $5 million to put into the roads, we still want to implement that.
Right, and that's what we did over the last probably 7, 8 years. That's why we included preservation in conjunction with the traditional mill and paved, because we were trying to push that curve back. And that's why we were successful in doing that.
Okay.
20 years ago, I kind of use the example of changing your oil in your car. 20 years ago, we would pave the road, we'd let it sit for 15 or 20 years, and we'd repave it again. That's sort of like buying a new car and not changing your oil until the engine seizes up and then putting a new engine in your car. So the preventive maintenance is like changing oil or something. You make your engine last longer, and in the end, it saves you money.
Makes sense.
One of
Very
the
good.
one of the biggest problems that we have is, we have to use Super Pave. I mean, it's a PennDOT product. There's nothing super about Super Pave, nothing. And it's a product that's one of the reasons our roads aren't lasting as long anymore, because the product isn't as good as it was, what it used to be. They were called the Marshall mixes or the ID mixes. They were a much better product. And what we found, and what's funny, is even the paving contractors that we deal with, when we pave a road, within the next 2 years, we fog seal it, because you have to seal it up and keep the water out of it. And they come out to look at what we did, and they totally agree with us.
Oh.
They said, that's what you should be doing.
Now, is there any grant money that we can apply for that may help us do more roads or more with our roads?
Well, Jamie has explored a lot of the grants, which what we talked about at the last meeting, and it seems like most of the grants are towards the traffic signals and things of that nature now. I haven't seen any for this type of work.
We always keep our eyes open.
Absolutely.
Most of the grants nowadays that you're talking about, Linda, are more for environmental things. Like we got that Growing Greener grant for the
Right.
stormwater, which
Right.
the school district. A lot of the trail grant we got, a lot of it's environmental, things of that nature. Getting a grant anymore for roads those days are long gone. They used to have what they called the WHAM money, that all the state representative, walking around money is what they called it. And that was only $30,000 that each state representative and state senator got. But that obviously is not a lot of money. But for roads, I couldn't even tell you the last time a grant for a road.
Well, that's what Jamie and I always talk about, because there always seems to be money for new roadways or new interstates, but never money to
Maintain them.
rebuild your existing roadway system.
When I talk to people with the DCED, Department of Community and Economic Development, that's what your liquid fuels money is for, which it is, because it's earmarked specifically for things for public works, and mostly, for roads. We use it for street lighting and mostly for street lighting. You can use it for that, obviously, too. But there's, for roads, virtually no grants out there for that.
Wow. Don't they realize we have to drive to get to the green space?
That's a good point.
Any other questions, council? Thank you, Jamie, for your time. Paul?
Very good.
Yeah, very
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks,
That was
Jamie.
good
Paul.
presentation.
Very good. That's
Very
very
informational.
informative.
Okay, we're going to
So,
move over to.
Once the weather changes and we evaluate the roads, we'll be back.
All righty.
Don't make it
Sean
any uglier than it already is.
Sean, you're up.
Tim had put on the agenda about the refinancing of the bond issues. It's something that I've been through twice. There really is no downside to it, as the gentleman explained to us here tonight. It's an opportunity to recapture some cash, and it's obviously a decision of council, but that's basically, it's a good move to explore it, to see what the options are.
Thank you, sir. And now we'll move over to reports of council members. And Steve, we'll start off with you, bud.
I just, I've received a lot of positive calls and comments in regards to the snow removal, and I just want to thank our Public Works for doing a great job. This February was rough.
You're here.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Paul.
I don't have anything for tonight.
Jim?
Yeah, it's going to take me a couple of minutes. We've got some stuff going on at the convention center. Kid Apalooza is going on Saturday, March the 7th. Westpac Spring Job Fair is Wednesday, March the 11th. The golf show is going on the 13th through the 15th. Pittsburgh Arts and Craft Festival is Friday, March 20th through the 22nd. The CAMP Coins and More Promotion Show is going on the 20th through the 22nd of March. The PERC Teacher Job Fair is Wednesday, March 25th. Showbiz National Talent, Friday the 27th through the 29th. The Western PA Kennel Club Dog Show is Saturday, April 4th and 5th. And we have one more, Still City Con is Friday, the April 10th through the 12th. That's everything that's going on at the Monroeville Convention Center. And just one other thing, I got involved with the Independence Day Committee Parade, and I'd just like to thank Paul Estock and Linda Moy for their efforts in helping put together, along with a bunch of other people. It's going to be a great parade this year. With that, I'm done. Thank you.
Ron?
Just a couple things. I got a email concerning McClure Road and the new water line going in. Does anybody know is that like a long story there? Or?
Go ahead. You want the quick synopsis?
Yeah,
Yes.
the condensed version of,
Okay, their Municipal Authority of Westmoreland County is putting in a new 24-inch water line that's going to connect Plum and Monroeville to the Municipal Authority of Westmoreland County's water supply system. It's part of that deal that the Municipal Authority made 1 or 2 years ago to get us cheap water. So there's actually going to be a new water line that's going to run from the intersection of Old Frankstown and New Texas, up Old Frankstown, down McClure, over Old William Penn, bore underneath 22 to where Wendy's is, and then cross down to Murraysville. So
Okay.
that project's under construction currently.
is McClure Road going to be shut down, or is it going down the middle of the road, or the?
They're going to be outside of the road in some areas, they'll be in the road in other areas, and they do plan on having some closures. So we're working on detour signage and things like that.
Notify the residents?
We're working on that as well.
The email I got, they didn't know. I just wanted to remind the residents that, along with Steve's compliment and everybody's compliment to the road department, they're having a very difficult time because people are still parking on the streets. And I don't know what else to do about it. The plow truck comes up a residential street and people leave their cars on it, and they can't even get by. So one of the residents called and said the plow truck lifted his plow and backed up and left. I don't know what you want them to do. There's a car parked in the middle of the street. Well, what the road department did was they sent a smaller dump truck back who could squeeze between that parked car and the curb, and they finished plowing the street. But that shouldn't have to happen. So please, get your cars off the street if you can. It will result in better service. And last but not least, I think this came out last month, but I wanted to tell the residents that Allegheny County passed a new open burning law that made it, let's call it, more stricter and easier to enforce. So I'm not going to read all the regulations here, but they did fine tune it and make it more strict, you might say, and they made it easier for the police, code enforcement, fire department to enforce it. And that's including a statement that says it's prohibited to have a nuisance fire. So be careful if you're going to have an open burn. You're going to follow the new law, and that's it.
On that note, actually, Mark, will we incorporate that into our ordinance? Or does it automatically, does the county ordinance supersede ours?
Correct.
So we'll just have to note that when we talk about in our ordinance?
Right. That's exactly right, Nick. If we go and and revise or supersede the county based on the complaints we've had with the municipality, then yes, we can include it, or it's automatically a regulation that we.
He's absolutely right. You don't have to do anything.
Right.
Okay.
They cite them under the county code. Unless you want to increase it more.
Gotcha. Okay, very good.
You're up, Nick.
Oh, well then, as far as the announcements I have, just out of the Recreation Department, a couple things coming up is just the Easter egg hunt, the annual Easter egg hunt that comes every year. It is at the Community Park West. It is Saturday, March 28th. Begins at 10 a.m. Children ages 2 to 10 are welcome. No pre-registration is necessary. Hopefully we have some nice weather before then. And then that same day, the Doggy Easter egg hunt, which is at the Heritage Park Dog Park. That same day, March 28th, Saturday. The event there begins at 2:30 p.m. There is a costume contest with the dogs, and also there'll be dog treats, Easter eggs actually filled with doggy treats. It's always a nice little event. So we'll make some more announcements as it comes closer, but that's March 28th, Saturday. 10 a.m. for the regular Easter egg hunt, no pre-registration. The doggy Easter egg hunt is 2:30 that same day, but you have to pre-register so they know how many dogs to anticipate. But that's all I have for this evening.
Linda.
First, I'd like to let the residents know on Hillcrest Court. There's been an issue there. It's been addressed with Mr. Shufo. Mr. Shufo has responded back to the resident. I think he's done a very good job of giving them the information that they've needed. They have decided that they wanted to go before the zoning board to try and get our zoning ordinance changed. So that meeting is actually going to happen on April 7th. All the residents will have a mailer go out to them, and it will be posted.
Linda, can I correct you? They're not asking for an ordinance change. What had happened on February 18th of this year, I followed up with a second violation letter concerning the use of the structure.
Okay.
She has hired an attorney. She's appealed my interpretation of the utilization of that single-family residential structure.
Okay.
That appeal will be going to the zoning hearing board, and it'll be heard at that point in time. They're not asking for a use change for the structure at this time.
Okay, but all the
an
residents will be notified, though, by mail.
Everybody will be notified by first-class mail, and then there'll be orange placards posted within 300 feet of the actual structure.
Okay, so, and that's April 7th at 7 p.m.
7:30.
7:30.
Yes.
Okay, just so everyone there knows that it's being worked on, it's being looked at, everyone's aware and being set up. Okay, next thing is the senior center. This Saturday, they're having their $500 jackpot bingo. They will have a lunch served at noon. The bingo will start at 1 o'clock, and it's a $15 entry fee. So that's this coming Saturday. So get out of the house. If you've been stuck with this cold weather, get out and go play bingo. It's also open at nighttime now, which is great, and it's also open for adults 50 and older, so you don't have to think because you're 50 you can't be going there. Yes, you can. They have night times. Their new fitness room is open. Go see it. It's great. And if you need some more information, they have a phone number of 412-856-7825. And their new newsletter is out. You can get this at the library. You can get it up here at the Borough Building. You can get the Senior Center. There's so much in here. You don't have long enough for me to tell you about everything. So check it out. A lot of good information. One of the great things coming is they are going to have coffee with council there. And this is the paper. We're going to have this actually put on Channel 15. It's going to be on March 27th at 10 a.m. Mr. Duncan, Mr. Johns, Mr. Harvey will be there. For people that don't want to come here, don't want to be on TV, this is a more personal way that you can come talk to your council person about them or any one of the rest of us. Go ahead. And then the May 1st will be Mr. Cleary, Mr. Wilson, and Mr. Griessock at 10 a.m. on May 1st. And I am the liaison, so I can be at any time. Feel free to call. So this is another great thing that's going on there. My last thing is kind of we've all said so much thanks to our garbage men and our public works and our police officers and all the great jobs, and I'm not going to take anything away from that. But I think we've missed somebody. I think it's our volunteer fire firefighters for their service, especially in this bitter cold. They're out there with water and, icicles hanging from their helmets, trying to save people's lives. And I think you forget to tell them thank you. I mean, they're volunteering their time and doing that to help other people. And then you see there's people out there that make these comments against these brave men and women, and it just upsets me terribly while they're sitting in their warmth of their home behind their computer. Well, to me, if you think you can do something or you can do it better, why don't you get out of that chair, get your boots on, get in your car, drive on up, and volunteer yourself. Put your life on the line as they do. Go and volunteer. And with that, I'm done.
No, that was for Tuesday. That's for Tuesday. Remember, you had your Citizens Night. Okay. Thanks, Robert. Before I give my report, Tim wanted to have.
Yeah,
one
I
more
just had a couple comments. Everybody's talking about the snow plowing and the salt. I gave council this evening a chart that came out of the Public Works Department. I asked them to put together to show council compared to last year and this year, what we have spent and used with respect to tonnage and dollars. Now, everybody remembers last year was also a bitter winter also, and this month of February hasn't been any better. But the usage thus far this year, and I know the people out there in TV land do not have the chart, we have used 7,000 tons of salt this year. Last year, the whole winter, our winter hopefully is over, we used 7,500. So we've used just about the same, maybe a little bit less. It'll probably end up being a little bit less than we used last year.
Why does the school district look so much?
The school, okay, there's also in the chart there, in the school district, we used less this year than last year. Why that is, I don't know, Steve. Okay, I don't know why. We used significantly less this year than last year. I'll have to talk to Mike about that. We used approximately 165 tons this year thus far and 185 tons. Well, that's a 20-ton difference. I mean, the chart is graphed, the increments, on the vertical axis, they're only in 5-ton increments.
Look at the cost difference.
Yeah, now the cost difference is significant. This year thus far, we've spent about $540,000 on salt. Last year, we spent about $350,000, and obviously the reason for that is the tonnage went up. Last year, we spent $57.52 a ton. This year, it went up to $79.22 a ton, which is a significant increase. I think it's a 38% increase. And our tonnage for salt, the cost has not gone up, but this year it did because there was only one bidder with Shaycog, South Hills Council of Governments, which is a consortium where we buy our salt. But since there was only one bidder on that, Cargill, and their price increase, we were stuck with that. So hopefully next year that will be better. The other item I just wanted to mention about Pitcairn Road, the county has opened up bids for Pitcairn Road. They've awarded the bid. If I'm not mistaken, they're going to start construction in April.
That's correct.
And they're going to award the bid in April. Construction is supposed to start in May or June, and they're supposed to be completed by August. And that's the timeline for Pitcairn Road. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, one other thing I would like to get council's permission, this chart on the tonnage for the salt, I think would be good to put it on Channel 15, maybe they can see that, because there's been some question on that, at least from me. And Tim, you stole some of my thunder on
Oh, I'm
Pitcairn
sorry.
Road, and that's good.
I'm sorry.
And it is a great live in Monroeville. We do have great services. And with that, I would like to seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you.